Welcome, everybody, to another episode on Think Preparedness here with City Prepping, the Urban Prepper, and the Canadian Prepper. We're here to talk about a lot of what's happening in our world and how those events are going to affect us in the preparedness communities over the course of the next month, couple of months, maybe even the next couple of years. One thing that I'm particularly excited about, and I don't want to say excited too much, is that we're seeing what I consider to be the end of this biological threat. And we were talking a little bit about this before we got on here and started, that Omicron seems to be on its way out with all of COVID-19. And there's a little bit of a financial tie here. And I know that we discussed, or at least we broached the topic a little bit, that they are shifting away from the biological threat and toward a threat that focuses on finances. And I think that's really where we're going to be at as far as what the powers that be or the wealthy and the elite push at us over the course of the next couple of months. I'd like to get your guys' take on where that's going. I know as soon as Fauci, I hope we don't get stricken down just by saying Fauci's name on here, but I know that as soon as he stood up in front of the elite committee over at Davos, and he said that he believes that we're experiencing what really will account for herd immunity, I could see right then and there through the veil that this was the next step, that they were going to push COVID-19 towards the back burner. And then they started publishing all sorts of data on antimicrobial resistant bacteria and how that has killed 1.9 million people just in 2019 alone, which, we're pushing, those are major numbers. So I see a shift away from that as far as what they're telling the public. Chris, Cliff, Nate, I'd like to know your guys' opinion, what you see there, or maybe what you've heard.
It's a lot more than what I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was so impressed with that intro, how much detail that was, all improv. So that was great. So sorry, I was mesmerized.
Nate, before we started, he said, I've got some stuff, I'm going to hold it back. So I was really waiting for that big push there.
No, I read that report actually that came out yesterday about the 1.9 on the antimicrobial resistance. I found that one pretty interesting because, again, my background, I studied microbiology in college, and that was always a concern, is that once, as we begin to get a little behind the curve on what, the antibody resistant different, pathogens, as they evolve, and we can't keep up medically what that will eventually look like one day. So I was really interested. Yeah, I came across a report the other day or today, and I read it, not, probably as much as you did, but
sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a concern, and it's, it's something that has been known and is a big concern in the community for a long time, in the medical community.
I mean, I looked up some figures today because I'm always, whether I'm a young person or, as I'm aging, whatever it might be, I'm always risk assessing myself and my family. Okay, what are we facing out there? What's the real risk? We have to face it. We get into a vehicle, we have a risk there. If you choose to smoke or drink even just a little bit of alcohol, you have a risk there. And so I'm always assessing that risk. And so as I looked at the data, because now we have just a massive amount of data on COVID-19 and on all the other biological threats that are out there, I'm in a pretty good place considering where we'll be at over the course of the next couple of months. So I really think that we're going to phase away from that as being a major push for concern in the community or around the globe. And it's going to become a little bit more of a normalized event. But I do still see China having a problem with it. And they're going to have a real difficulty because they don't want to let it. They're really trying the COVID zero policy. That means they're going to have to keep the control measures in place for what they're considering to be the next 5 or 6 years, and just let up small pockets of disease transmission so that they don't overwhelm their own healthcare system. And so I think we're going to continue to sort of be in a difficult position in our supply chain here, because so much of our goods just comes from China and so many of our pharmaceuticals. And I think that that's still going to really press on us over the course of the next couple of years. Nate, what were you seeing? I know that you said supply issues were a little bit bigger of a problem there in Canada. At least they are right now.
Yeah. All I really had to say with respect to this issue was the policies around it. And we're starting to see, like you're saying, there is this trend now towards there's kind of slowly backing away, it seems. I think the UK, who is renowned for its fairly strict and regimented, I want to drop the word police state, but nanny state, right?
Sure.
they're the ones who are, pulling all the stops, basically. Like they're basically taking all the mask mandate and the passports. They're getting rid of all of that. While at the same time, you have countries like Austria bringing in what some are considering to be excessive control measures. So it's going to be interesting to see if all these protests and stuff, if those countries are going to cancel those plans and just kind of slide back into the shadows and pretend like nothing happened, or if Britain is just doing this right now to take attention off the whole Boris Johnson fiasco, whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of hard to say what's going on there, but it does appear that the word endemic, and even the Dr. John Campbell, the most popular YouTuber who talks about this kind of stuff, I think he just made a video with 2 million views talking about how it's now an endemic. It's officially recognized as one. You have studies coming out talking about how, and I don't know the validity of these studies because I haven't really looked in it in too much depth, but apparently there's a well-known and scientifically credible agency in Europe who has come out with some information about how infinite boosters may potentially have some negative consequences, right?
Yeah, so that makes sense.
We're starting to see the narrative shift a little bit. And we're right now in Canada, what we're seeing is that our prime minister recently implemented a policy. I don't know if it's him or the health minister, whatever, that basically had mandated truckers to get the jab. And that has caused a lot of truckers to be pissed off in the thousands. Yeah. And they can't travel to the United States if they don't have the jab. So we're seeing supply chain disruptions here, like major ones, but they're also, like I'll go into the grocery store one day, half the produce section will be empty. I'll go in there the next day, it will be full again. So it's almost like the just-in-time delivery system is experiencing these hiccups as a result of this. Yeah. On top of the fact that because Omicron is so not virulent, but so transmissible, so many people are catching it that they're having to stay home from work, even if they're just exposed. So this has forced a lot of economies around the world to say, we're going to cut down the quarantine time because this is having an unintended consequence of, really creating this labor shortage. And I don't even think I really anticipated that. I anticipated that people would not go to work because maybe they were sick or people were dying. But I never thought of, okay, the government's going to force you to stay home and that's what's going to crash the economy. So that was kind of a new thing I learned throughout this whole thing. And I think that really came to fruition with Omicron, which is why Omicron is actually kind of worse for the supply chain than the previous one that wasn't as transmissible, all at once, because that spike, if you go on worldometers, it's huge. Like it's, it's like gone parabolic. So, everybody's catching this thing. And I should say, I know from personal experience, somebody who has got double jabbed, a nurse, and somebody very close to me. And she got really sick when she got the Omicron. So really hospital sick. Okay. Yeah. So, it's still, I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, it's not serious at all. I think we still need to approach it with caution because you just never know what confluence of factors are going to. So it's not as much as some people get this and they just walk right through it. We still have to pay attention to the fact that, I don't think it's over yet entirely, but I hope it's over because everybody's exhausted, everybody's burnt out. And so that's what's going on in our neck of the woods. So it's creating quite an uproar with the truckers who are blocking highways and stuff like that. So
right. Okay.
Yeah, here locally in the Seattle area, I'm finding that more people are, I don't know if I want to say reckless, but they're content that they're probably going to get this. A lot of people in our family caught it over the Christmas break, over New Year's break, and a lot of people were just like, I'm done with this. I'm going to just go and catch it. I know these people have it. I'm going to catch it. I'll get it done with, and then I'll live with the consequences of it. So I feel that a lot of people, as Nate was saying, are you kind of done with a lot of this or burnt out, whether they got the Fauci ouchie or not. They are just getting it just so they could be done with it. And in all the social circles that I do, because I do a lot of stuff in the evening, we're constantly getting emails. Hey, just to let you know, someone had it. Oh, just to let you know, someone had it. Now everyone's just at the point now where they're just kind of burnt out with the whole idea of it. So I'm hoping that this is the beginning to the end, or that we have we can see the finish line on the horizon.
Sure, yeah.
Kind of aligns with midterm elections too. So who knows? Maybe that's a good thing for some folks. But yeah, I don't know. I know in our family we went through people getting sick through that. Some people were positive, some people were negative. Some people didn't want to miss Christmas, so they you know what, I'm gonna go enjoy Christmas with my family. If I catch it, I catch it. And some of them they did. Fortunately, no one in my circle has been seriously impacted, but I have known others outside of my circle that, as Nate said, were got a little pretty messed up from it. And so it's I don't know, it's again, but it does feel like we're coming. It might be the end, but who knows?
I'm wondering if. Go ahead,
Brad. You made a really interesting point that people need to bear in mind about the China situation. Now, I have heard there was some kind of. I just heard this story in passing. It was about some kind of algorithm that predicts how many people, because there's this excess deaths going on in China, and we're getting into the realm of speculation, and I don't want to speculate too much, but there's a risk that, because they haven't been exposed to it, that, this thing could run rampant for years there if they continue the approach that they're taking, and that could affect the supply chain. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's something we need to bear in mind. And that is definitely something that I'm seeing, with my store, CanadianPreparedness.com, right?
Okay, yeah, okay. I'll remember that.
Let me write that down. Is that
www.canadianpreparedness.com? Okay. Yeah, we're seeing almost worse than it was 6 months ago. So something's going on anyways. But
hey,
anyways.
When's the Canadian Preparedness app coming out? That's what I need to know.
I talked to a guy, he wanted $70,000, and I'm like, man, I can't afford that.
Swipe left if you like. Swipe left if you like the gear. Swipe right if you don't.
Yeah, swipe right if you don't want to die. So you just put everything in your cart. Yeah.
Yeah. For the I know for me personally, for the shortages like within China and stuff, I'm being so reliant on it from a medical standpoint of prescriptions. That for me personally, that's where I'm the most concerned on the supply chain, because I need a lot of that stuff to survive, and it's not like I could grow it in my container garden or anything like that. So yeah, definitely a concern. So.
Well, it's interesting because we're seeing just one more thing. We're seeing that in Canada, anyways, they're starting to change the approach now. It used to be, if you're not jabbed, we're not going to treat you at all. But now they're starting to be okay with it. They're starting to say, okay, we got this new Pfizer pill, so we're actually going to prioritize people who are unjabbed, which is kind of came out of left field. Yeah. So the narrative is definitely shifting. Anyways, go ahead, Chris. Tell us what you think.
Oh, no, I'm listening to this. I mean, I've been watching, fortunately, during the holidays in my own personal story, none of, our household, nor my wife's family, we live out here with her family in this area, none of them have really gotten sick or there's been any issues. So we've been pretty fortunate. People have been pretty careful using testing, because some of our family members are very high risk. And so we've been very considerate of them.
Sure. Yeah.
To make sure that there's some older individuals, there's some diabetics, there's these different factors that lend, toward a much higher impact if they contracted it. So we've tried to be really careful with them. And I've been so busy over the last few months, I haven't really gotten out that often. So I've been working on a big project, and it just has been tying me up. So honestly, I haven't really gotten out that much. But I've been watching this. My only concern is, again, kind of at the beginning of the conversation, when we talked about, the potential for antibiotic resistant mutations. And I know my concern personally is if something were to mutate again. I know we're in Omicron, and hopefully this just turns into, again, something that we live with. It's like it's like the flu every year, or influenza, whatever. I mean, that would be, I think, hopefully the best case. But all that to say, my biggest fear is just watching, and, as preppers, I guess we do have our concerns. And I would say probably my top 3 list, again, from my background, is that something like this begins to move into a higher mortality rate. I was listening to a video from Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy, and, he was explaining if we were to see something even as low as a 5% mortality rate, if this were to move to that direction, it would be game over. I mean,
it's catastrophic.
Yeah, look at what 1% has done to the world and to,
Right.
some of my close friends from college are in the medical community, and I've listened to them. And, a couple of weeks ago, they were overloaded because a lot of their staff were getting sick, so they couldn't come in, but here in California, they're now telling the medical community, just come in. It's like you're treating patients with it. You got it. Everybody's got it. Just as long as you're functional, just keep going. So all that to say, that's my concern is if we saw something move up higher in the numbers, yeah, that would be worst case scenario. And that's
I'll tell
what
you,
I keep an eye on.
Really my word of caution, I guess, to everybody, and that's whether you had any concern over COVID-19 from the beginning or you had absolutely no concern over it at all, is that one thing that we have learned scientifically is that as soon as a novel disease starts running through a population, it increases the lottery chance. And there's just a chance for no other reason. You're going to shoot bad on that lottery, you're going to throw it bad, and you're going to get really sick. So if we do see something like a bird flu crossover, or if we see something else, don't discount, no matter what, don't discount the next possible pandemic, because it could be your time to throw the lottery. So I think that if you make your plans for the future for the next one that, like Chris said, is 5% or 10%, or you look at, MERS has the potential to be a 20 to 30%, or, the bird flus, then, just watch out for that and know that you might just roll bad dice and take that into your own consideration.
Yeah, I think that's the issue is, it's there was an article, I'd have to go back and look at it again, but it was explaining essentially everything that we've learned over the last few years. The point of the article is that we're not really ready for something more. If something was more, had higher mortality rate, if we see something in our near future, it could be catastrophic on so many levels. I don't know if any of y'all, this is totally an aside, have watched the show on HBO. Came out a few weeks ago called Station 11. It was about a month ago.
3 episodes into it.
Yeah, I was. Have y'all heard of it, Nate?
No.
Yes, I kind of got bored of it, to be honest. It was
slow.
A little too artsy for me, man.
Yeah, it's very, very artsy. Side note, I was.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was in theater in high school, so a lot of my friends, it's kind of on that same thing. So I was like, all right, yeah, I could appreciate it, but yeah, it's a slow burn. But that's the premise, right? Is like a 99% runaway virus, or flu gets out. And, that's kind of the premise. They have to lock themselves in for 3 months to survive. And then when they come out, everybody's dead. Right. And I know that's obviously an extreme example, right? It's fiction. But the point being is that, that's what I hope for my community, is that people can, if something comes along, that they can be prepared to shut their door if they had to for a period of time. If, like you said, Brad, if something comes along that has a much higher, the lottery chances are much more devastating.
Yeah. Right.
I hope people can be prepared for that.
And, I think that you just my family and family's friends, I was just around people the other day who are in their 70s and older, and they were just telling about all their friends who just had dropped like flies over the course of the last 12 months. And that's really unheard of. And that's excess mortality. And so, there's just no reason all of their friends should be having blood clotting issues. And some could say that that's from something that they took. Some could say it's from a disease that they caught. But there's no reason we should be experiencing that sort of excess mortality. So I think that, we just have to take that caution with us. That, and I wonder if it's going to change too, our mindset of, before COVID, I think everybody who had an older or ailing family member, you just knew in the back of your head that it's just they're one flu away from pneumonia, they're one pneumonia away from death. And that was a general acceptance. But now we've sort of awakened as a society to taking some personal responsibility of who gives Nana that final pneumonia to make her kick the bucket. And I wonder if that's going to, if we're going to see a change here because of that. But I think that I'd like to move a little bit into the next series of what we're seeing. And that is, Nate said it, I believe it was on our last video. It was when we were talking about the mobs and the mobs going all over, them hitting the grocery store, or not the grocery stores, the fine jewelry stores. They were hitting them in California. They were hitting them in Florida. And Nate, you said something, and you said when they hit the grocery stores and when they hit other normal areas, that's when things start getting bad. And now we're just a week past them coming up and hitting the cargo train lines. Have you seen the videos of the California cargo trains with just boxes everywhere,
Crazy,
Nikes
yeah.
everywhere? It's wild. I mean, we're seeing mob mentality play out in like a wild west that is really going to, who's going to pay for that? You and I are. We're going to pay for it in higher prices, and then we're going to see even more supply issues.
And the result of that is probably going to be, armed train guards. I mean, there's already people in the comments section saying, yeah, bring on the guys with guns on the trains, not thinking about what sort of dystopian ramifications that might have.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to add to something that you said in the last piece about the Omicron, is that we must bear in mind, if people are going to say, oh, it's over now, yay, life is back to normal. But we must remember that it's only in the last 20 years since SARS-CoV-1 that we've had these 3 new novel strains, only in the last 20 years. Right. So, what's coming next is the question. I mean, since 2002, we've had SARS, we've had MERS, now we've had, COVID. Yeah. So really, it's like, what's coming next, right? Right. So we can't rest on our laurels and just completely, there's going to be a lot of people, and this is one of because now that the divide has been set, when the big one does come, there's going to be a lot of people who don't trust anything that the scientific community and the government have to say because of overreach. Yeah. And that's going to get a lot of people hurt. So, I think at my channel, I'm trying to encourage people like, look, we know that there's obvious that this thing has been mismanaged, but we can't just get complacent and just think it's nothing, because everybody, I mean, who I've, even some more popular people who've had it and beat it relatively quickly, they still say, look, this really sucks to get. So if you're talking about a 1% fatality rate, really, primarily most of that 1% is in retirees. Well, even a 3% mortality rate across the population, the working population who have children, who have children who need care, we kind of got, I don't want to say got lucky because I don't want to, demean anybody's loss or anything, but we're lucky that this didn't take out younger people.
Yeah, right.
And so, we can't get complacent about the future. And that's all I wanted to add with that. But yeah, I mean, it's the Wild West, and now people are going to call people's solution, unfortunately, to these economic problems is going to be more. It's going to be dealing with it, not looking at, well, what's causing all this? Is it, is there poor people struggling to get by? Is it people? Right. Is it a shitty education system? Is it, they're going to say, well, we want security, and so they're just going to bring more guns, and that's not going to fix the original problem.
Yeah.
So.
We're really living, I believe full-heartedly that we are living through a dystopian economic collapse. And I think the dystopian part really comes from all of the other parts of the crisis that are a little bit less visible. That's the great divide between the really what becomes the 0.5% and everybody else. Because let's face it, if you make over, I think in the US, if you make over $159,000, you're in the top 10%. Well, the difference between that top 10% and the top 0.5% is complete worlds apart. And so I think that as this continues to happen, we're going to, see these different reactions in the populace, and you're going to get a sort of a Robin Hood bravado and calling for that, where people are just like, yeah, let's go get our stuff. I was just reading a report from Bert Flickinger. He's a resource group manager. He was talking about the economy and the crime wave that was hitting with bots, the boxes and stuff. And he said in several months during that period, the increase from the previous year as far as crime went surpassed 200%. And what they're doing is starting to, and we know that the government is great at this. We know the Federal Reserve is great at this. They're all, in my opinion, at least, great at pointing blame. First, they said it was, everyone was sick, and then it was everyone was forced to stay home. And then they said they just point this blame to where the economy is and why it's not them. Don't look at them. They're doing everything right. And now they're saying that the crime that is happening, including that rail theft, is going to shoot up prices another 1 to 2 percentage points on its own. I mean, we're just to the point. I was fortunate enough. I was telling Kelly, we went like, how many weeks do you think? Like we went like 3 to 5 weeks without making a single grocery purchase. And in that purchase, it was time to come and resupply some of the things that we had used, the oats, the rice, the flour, the canned goods. We made the same exact purchase again off of our, like Sam's Club, where it's your frequently used items. We just clicked those same buttons, and we had a 23% increase in price over 5 weeks. We went right back to our old receipt, and that exact receipt was 23% different. Now, maybe there was some seasonality to it. I don't really know, but what I do know is it was a shock for me and everybody that's in our friend circle that is in the foundation class. They're all hit so hard, they literally don't know what to do. And they're just like running rampant with the depressive state that they have no, that fake future that we used to give everybody. That was that if you went to school and got a diploma, you went to college, you got a job, you'd get a better job, you pay off that home eventually, you pay off that car. That was really a good pipe dream that we sold everybody on. They just don't believe it anymore. So as we see them set up for inflation to stay here, I think that everyone's going to be in a real bad position in the next couple of months,
to say the least.
When do you order from Sam's Club? Are you having that delivered? Or are you picking that up?
delivery through like UPS.
That's great. Yeah, we've been thinking about doing something similar for that to go out less to the stores, and we're starting to see compared to last month, the stores being impacted with a lot of I know a lot of us preppers for our thumbnails will have the empty shelf images, but I'm seeing it more and more within a mile's radius of me, and it's definitely getting concerning. And then also with all these mom and pop shops and little places, I'm seeing more and more plywood on the doors because I just went before this broadcast, I just went and picked up some soda at my local Quickie Mart, and it was all boarded up again because someone just last night did it, and that's pretty scary. I was curious because I saw the train, all that theft, the trash and theft. I mean, it's kind of like Goodfellas on how they're robbing them for flipping stuff. Is that just in one local area? Was that in LA only, or is that happening more all around the US?
Only the train in that area, but UPS trucks and FedEx trucks are getting hit across other areas of the US.
It will be now that it's been advertised, because there'll be copycats now.
They don't lock the train cars. I mean, they usually have like plastic seals to show that they were shut, but they don't have an actual locking mechanism. So they'll probably have to start changing, the protocol to avoid that situation. I was thinking about driving out. It's only an hour away to do some filming.
Oh, that'd be good.
Channels that are doing it. They're getting all these views, and I was like,
be careful.
I was like, I know that area. I mean, it's like I don't know how that would really tie to prepping, but I don't know. Something you hit on a second ago, Brad. I mean, is my concern right now is that, so many people that have, like you said, have been sold a dream that if you, work the job, you save up, you'll get the house, you'll yada, 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 retire with dignity, that's gone. And that, my dad, when he retired about 5 years ago, he had a school pension and everything, right? I mean, he worked the same job his entire life. That just does not happen anymore. And my concern is the next generation coming up is, the more and more I read on various forums, people that are in that age group are like, what's the point anymore? It's like, I feel bad for them. I'm like, they've kind of lost hope. Well, not just kind of, but they have. And, I mean, my area, for example, in the last year and a half, I mean, property values have shot through the roof. Our house, I mean, has gone up nearly 50% in the 2 years that I bought it. And so I just, that's my fear, is that if this next generation has no hope, then, what's to say? I mean, what difference does it make to rob a train, take, and as your point, that you made, Nate, I mean, when we start seeing them making runs on stores, that's, I think we know we're in a world of hurt.
Are you guys having, I know a lot of us have kids and stuff. I mean, that's a big main concern that I have, is trying to keep my kids sane during all of this and still give them hope. But it's getting more and more difficult now on what to do for the future for them. But are you guys struggling with that with those that have kids and stuff?
Are you teenagers yet?
Sorry, say that again.
Oh, are your kids teenagers yet?
My son's 11 going on 12. My daughter's 6 going on 16.
Okay. I only bring that up because it's, It's been, yeah, my oldest is a teenager now, and whew, last year that's been a lot of fun. So, but my kids have been optimistic. I mean, they haven't really gotten that. We had I don't know. We've been fortunate in our household.
We have a lot of kids in the school that they're going through a lot more depression issues than I remember in previous years. We have a lot more fights happening at the school. We have a lot more the divide line with like these like kids like in fourth grade or something having political debates with each other. I'm like, he's a liberal or he's a Trump voter.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And getting in playroom fights, and it's like I'm pretty scared about like the and these are good kids from good families, and they're having problems. So it just feels like we might be in a world of hurt in 10 years from now, just from all the stuff that's happening today. So yeah.
Well, Nate, you were in that industry for a while. I'm sure you're probably you anticipate in the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot of money in the psychology industry, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a whole other topic in itself, I guess. But, I mean, there's always going to be a lot of medication being doled out because that's the easy way to deal with people. And the problem is the greater the demand, the more psychiatrists have to resort to just doing that. So you'll just have a bunch of people with their VR headsets and, pumped full of all sorts of psychopharmaceuticals to sedate them and make sure they don't rage out, throughout the day, basically.
And what's crazy is, as dystopian as that sounds, because it really puts us into like a Ready Player One, imagery, is that really that different than them just pushing massive amounts of pharmaceuticals on youth and them sitting in front of their phone? We're only one step away from that Ready Player One, and that's that phone being a VR, and that's the only difference in this world.
And it's there, basically. I mean, the VR thing is going to really start to explode in the next year or two. So, I mean, it is what it is. That's how people are going to cope, I think, is they're going to find alternate virtual realities and it's becoming so realistic that it is actually it's the Matrix, right?
Yeah,
and actually they have that game on Unreal Engine 5, which is just I believe it's just some kind of like it's not a game, but
it's like a walkthrough. Yeah,
developers sort of thing, and just showing you the graphics and stuff. And I mean, it's they're a couple iterations away from actual reality. So it's going to be weird how the evolution of that is going to coincide with the mess that's happening in the real world as that reaches its pinnacle. We're going to be peaking in that technology as well. So, but the supply chain issue is interesting because it's we had package piracy before.
Sure, yeah.
But now they're almost moving up the supply chain, to the trucks and the train cars, and possibly, the port congestion is still. It's a gong show in Canada. I don't know what it's like there, but I've had a shipment of wood stoves for the store sitting there at the dock for the last 2 months. There's just nobody to crack it open and send it over here. So it's only a matter of time, I think, before they start trying to hit those trains with that stuff coming from China or wherever. So they're moving up the supply chain, and this is what I remember making videos about, if you were going to survive in, like, it was SHTF in an urban environment, everybody's going to be going for the low-hanging fruit, the grocery store. Well, I mean, if the shizzy was hitting the fizzy, you'd want to go to where the grocery stores get supplied to, I mean, if you had no other option, you go up the supply chain. And so it almost seems like that's sort of what's happening with crime, is that they're starting to get more creative in terms of, the methods that they use, which is going to force a more heavy-handed approach, which maybe in the short term will benefit people, but ultimately, one of those guns is going to get pointed at you, even though you're a law-abiding citizen, and for something maybe you didn't do, or excessive use of force or whatever. So, without rule of law, it begets excessive rule of law.
Sure, yeah.
And so that's something that I don't think is going to be great. but I guess the best thing we can do, that's why I live where I live, because, you know, we live far away from all the crap. As cold as it is here, if you guys want to come here, you know, there's endless, you know, cold ass forest for you to inhabit. There's no crime yet. Well, there's crime, but it's not nearly as bad as what you guys got going on there. So
yeah, you know what really gets me? I was hoping to pick your guys' brain about this. So we have right now a time where the IRS in the US has collected more taxes from individuals than they ever have before in history. They're collecting record taxes. Then we have the IRS chasing every person who has made over $600 yearly on Venmo or PayPal or any of these other, money transferring apps, knowing that this divide is really becoming a difference between whether you can afford luxury or you can't afford luxury. Why do you think we're seeing this huge push for more and more taxes? Is it just the catch up of the massive amounts of debt that they are allowing, that we're allowing them to put on our future generations, or what's really happening there? Why is this sudden push for, if you make $2, they're going to come at you? I hear crickets. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, I was like, that one, I was like, well, I live in California, so that's my world. I mean, I'm getting hit coming and going. I got a sunshine tax I pay. I mean, I've got taxes, bleeding them out of my nose. So I've kind of gotten, unfortunately, used to it. So I've just tried to learn to hire a good accountant that, can help me with my business and navigate, but all that to say, I mean, I abide, I do it, I don't take risk, hogs get fed, or pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. So I don't push the edge too much. I know some guys that they know how to navigate the IRS, their payments,
yeah, right,
to where they're paying nothing. And I'm like, I don't want that risk. Those guys are the ones that end up doing time. But yeah, I mean,
but maybe I'm thinking that it's something, maybe it's my, like, the conspiratorial side of thinking, or that it's something larger that is happening. Because if you look at London right now, they're going to start hitting their motorists with a pay per mile charge to force them into public transportation. So I think that even the act in that area anyways of owning and driving a car is going to become a luxury. And just like in the USA, if you own your house, even though many people don't own their house, they're renting it from the bank for 30 years. But if you are listed as the owner, you've bought a house, that's a luxury now, because we had all these hedge funds come in and they all purchased all these houses in this crazy housing bubble. And so now that's the luxury, because everyone else is just a renter. So I'm kind of like taken back by that. We're seeing this push for everything to be a luxury. And you basically, I heard it through our community for so long that you'll own nothing and be happy. And yes, I read all that and I saw them talking about that, but I thought it was more of a localized agenda or a personal opinionated agenda, and less of something that was going to become a nationwide or an international agenda. But that's really where it looks like it's going to me, where if you own a car, we're going to make you pay by the mile, because if you can't afford to do it, then that puts you in the lower class. But if you can't afford to do it, then you'll pay us more. You make a little bit of money on PayPal. Okay. If you can afford to pay your taxes on it, then you can keep, selling 2 computers a year or whatever it might be that makes that $600 threshold. If you don't, well, then you're just with that lower class. So I really think that there's a divide there that's really pushing classes even further apart. I mean, can you imagine, you live in California where there's massive amounts of public transportation, but for them to charge you just to pay per mile that you drive, doesn't that seem pretty totalitarian?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's, I think, tying into the bigger picture. I mean, between inflation, I mean, we're getting hit, and the average American right now is just getting demolished. Yeah, getting back to the example you used at Sam's Club, it just feels like we're being nickel and dime at every turn. I just got a phone call from my fire insurance on my home, or my home insurance. Fire is a big issue out here, is what I was trying to say. They're raising our rates 50% this year, because it's just like, well, a lot of the big carriers, AIG and others, are backing out of California. It's just getting so hard to, and so it's getting harder and harder by the day for the typical American. I mean, we could talk about health insurance. I mean, there's so many things that are converging, it feels like. I guess kind of going on a tangent with you there, Brad. I mean, I just feel like the big picture here is that most Americans are just they're being chipped away day by day. And that's not exclusive to America. But that's my bigger concern. And, you know, the UK, I haven't followed it too closely. I heard that report today, but, you know, I don't know. I would be surprised in the next 10 years if, you know, any of us are still driving, if that's still even allowed, if we're not all on AI by that point, you know?
Yeah, right.
But anyway, yeah, it's my biggest concern is that we're going to see a separation between the have and the have-nots. It's going to become so big. And historically, when you see that in any nation, it just doesn't end well. And that's my biggest fear right now is you saw the reports. I mean, even in the last year or two, the wealthiest, whatever 0.5% of Americans, they have doubled their overall asset value. That's a staggering number. And, you know, this is not me going on a rant that I'm against billionaires. Look, there's plenty of money out there. I have no problem if billionaires are billionaires. I don't take that position that you can't be a billionaire in America. I mean, I don't worship billionaires. I think if there was only one that I would give a high degree of respect, it's probably Elon Musk, that I feel like he's actually doing something. But all that to say, the separation and the inability of most Americans to move up because they keep getting knocked down, that's my concern. That is a huge concern I have at the moment. And I listen in the comment sections. I've got right now 10 solar generators sitting on the other side behind me that I have to review next month. And I'm a little nervous to do it because I'm like, these things are getting, you know,
pricey.
I mean, it's just, I see you laughing, Nate. I'm sorry. That's my one thing. I love being in California. I love solar. And my wife, every time I get a package, she's like, really? I get people emailing me and I'm like, it's just fun to review them. They're interesting to me. But all that to say, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I don't know. I mean, a typical person, this is becoming unaffordable. It's a fascinating product, but I am concerned, you know, that it's
changing there. Yeah. I mean, listen to this. This is the Target CEO, Brian Cornell. He says, some of the historical ways consumers will react to the inflation that's going to play out throughout 2022 and beyond. And this is a quote from him: "You'll drive fewer miles. You'll consolidate the number of times and the locations where you stop. You'll probably spend a little more eating at your home versus your restaurant. And you might make some trade-offs between a national brand and a store-owned brand." So, I mean, it's like everybody at the top just sees that everybody that's not at that top is going to be in a worse position. And it seems like, I don't want to say that they want that, but I think that everyone else being driven towards the bottom increases the bottom's reliance on the top. And of course, you've got to go to Amazon. Of course, you know, because mom and pops have to charge you more just to stay open. So of course you have to, you know, give your hard-earned money to these corporations. So I really have a large concern there over the course of the next, even just year, of the people who are going to fall that much further behind. And, you know, that makes prepping, you know, our whole goal here is to make it so that everybody has the skills that they need, the items that will help them survive, you know, the wherewithal to get ahead. And it really takes away that whole chunk of the items part, because if you're having a hard time, you know, going to the store just to put gas in your car, what's the likelihood of you being able to get that defib machine that might save somebody's life at your house?
Yeah, I feel that nowadays it feels like we're moving towards a service-based society where everything's a service now. Riding a car is a service. Okay, next it's gonna, okay, let's just take an Uber there. Okay, now the Uber drives by itself. Let's get rid of all those employees. And oh, you no longer need a car, and you don't need a garage door. Everything on my computer now is a service. Like I don't own my Adobe Premiere Pro. It's like as soon as that service is done, it's done. All the things I watch on TV are a service. Eventually, food will be a service. And then once you're if you're deemed to be maybe preppers will no longer be allowed to use the services that they get used to, then what do you do? You're screwed. So it's definitely scary. And I definitely feel, I think a lot of people are feeling the pinch on where they're choosing to spend their money, especially for preps and stuff. For a lot of the larger ticket items, I'm trying to, I want to buy it myself because when I'm doing the review of it, to say, because I put my money towards it versus I get a little bit worried if you get it for free for a review or whatever, that the people that are, you know, they might not have enough liquid money to be able to buy some of the larger ticket items. So I definitely feel that too. And I think a lot of people are trying to be a lot more selective on where they're choosing to invest. And fortunately, it feels like due to everything over the past couple of years that they're investing it towards food, because the food is going up in value. So if you have a lot of food, that's going up in value versus some of the other flashlights or something that I bought in the past that
right.
you probably don't need some $200 big old flashlight or something like that.
Hey, I need to see Nate's next thumbnail where he's shining that thing and you can see the beam just going on forever.
Those things are pretty crazy. Yeah, they're the Death Star beams.
It is coming, but I don't know if you guys noticed, but a lot of that stuff which was deflationary for a long time, it seemed to have slowed down. Like, you remember Moore's law, how every 2 years that it's supposed to go faster, and I've noticed that it's not only slowed down, especially with some of the flashlight tech. Like, they're still selling, or we're still selling, like, for instance, the Immolent 100,000 lumen monster flashlight that's the most powerful flashlight in the world. That has been holding its price for the last 3 years, ever since it came out. It hasn't gone down in price at all. So we're not seeing the technological deflation anymore really that much either. And that, of course, has been probably compounded by the supply chain issues caused by the pandemic. But I've noticed, I'm not seeing the 50 terabyte hard drives that we should be seeing right now. We're seeing, it seems to have kind of slowed a little bit. And whether that's the result of just us hitting a wall with technology, or if it's the result of true scarcity, because I do think we are, we talk about the supply chain, but in a way, I've thought that could be overshadowing a much darker reality, which is there's just less stuff being made because, it's kind of harder to mine these rare earth metals that required for all the stuff that we use. It's becoming harder to grow crops because of the climate issues. So I'm also concerned that the whole focus, like the media headlines supply chain issue, it could be potentially a front for the real problem is that we actually don't have the stuff, but we're just saying that it's a supply chain issue. I'm not saying it's conspiracy. I'm just saying that that's where everybody's focused on, when it could be that, it's just becoming harder and more expensive to make this stuff. And that's part of the problem, because everybody still thinks that, we're running on unlimited energy here, which we're not. We have finite amount of resources, and we're starting to see the consequences of overuse of pesticides and various fertilizers, and how that's starting to reach its limit. And we're probably going to start to see some, and this is just speculation, but we may start to see some adverse effects of using monocultural GMOs and things of that nature. So we're entering an era now where the jury's out on how what do Brett and Heather Weinstein call it, unintended consequences, or the precautionary principle, that we don't know what the outcomes of all these new technologies are actually going to be, and it could potentially diminish our ability to produce food. Never mind getting the food there. There may just not be the food. So it's important that of the few biodiversity that exists, the little biodiversity that exists nowadays, I can't remember if it's something like 3% of the biodiversity of the fruits and vegetables that we eat.
It's all narrowed down.
Yeah. So, it's important now that we find a way to harness what we have and learn how to do it ourselves. Because even the food nowadays, there's something about it. It just doesn't, even the produce that I eat, that I get from you guys in California, it just doesn't taste the same. Like it's almost, it's like it's all water or something.
I was going to say that. I was going to say water.
We don't have much water here, so don't blame us.
That's where it's going. You guys are shipping out water in the form of crops.
Right. Well, whenever I drive up to Go ahead. I'm sorry, Cliff.
I was going to say that's really become apparent to me since getting into gardening as part of your home preparedness, like how the tomatoes taste that I grow in my garden are so much better than the grocery store. It's made me question, what is this that I've been eating all these years of my life? Because like Nate says, it's different. And
well, what they do is they pick it when it's green, when it's very green. It has it pulled in full nutrition, and they ship it, and it matures and ripens en route. So it's not the same. Yeah, exactly. If you do it and you pull it at home when it's ripe, right? I mean, it's a totally different, a different item. But not to go on a different tangent, but even the water issue, had a friend over recently, and she works for a big company in Yuma. They do fertilizer, and I've done a lot of studies on fertilizer over the last few months with natural gas prices, what that's doing to fertilizer, what it will do to food prices this year.
Yeah.
And she was like, when I was like, oh, what are you seeing with the fertilizer industry? Are you concerned? And she looked at me and she's like, that's not the concern. Yeah, it's going to go up. The problem is water. We're about to run out, and no one's really talking about it. And, if you look at Lake Mead and these other places that are, our Boy Scouts, our troop is doing a big trip at the beginning of April. We're going to go to the base of Hoover Dam. We, push out in our canoes right at the very base. You have to go through all this government background check to do that. But all that to say, they're running out of water. So, geez, I mean, yeah, that's a problem. Is we produce, I forget how much, 70-80% of the produce in the United States. And when you go up Central Valley, they're just going deeper. You see signs all over on the side of the freeway, like, stop all this regulation for deeper, drilling, because they're going to get to a point where there's nothing more to drill, and it's destroying these aquifers. So
I was before you get back on that, I had a guy drill a well recently, and he actually drilled a couple of wells that I was talking about. And I asked him what the difference was over the course of the last couple of years. And he said he is running out of bits. Like, he's having to replace his bits at 3 times the rate because he has to keep going deeper. And the guy's been drilling wells in that same area for the last 30 years. And so if they're saying that there's a change, I mean, sure, it could be somewhat location based, but he goes all the way through a multi-county area to drill wells.
And that's in Florida?
No, in Alabama.
Oh, okay.
And and so I think that you're right, that there is a change. And if you look at the dry up report, they have a well dry up report that's run by a government organization. And we're seeing, I think it was like a 12% dry up right now. It was astronomical when you think about the fact that if you've relied on this well for the last 100 years and then suddenly it's gone, we've got to put that into our own contingency plans of what to do if you don't have access to any other sources. Sorry to interrupt you there, Chris.
No, that's I've been, again, shopping land. I've been shopping land forever, but that's my number one concern, is that what good is it going to be to have land, but if you can't secure water, I mean, you're on a rock at that point. So, yeah.
This is all part of the natural trend of, from what I know, is that the inlands, the interiors of all continents are becoming drier, and because of like mass agriculture, and because all that is being exported in the form of produce from the inlands, and then the coastal regions are getting wetter. So it's going to become increasingly more difficult to etch out a living in if you're living in a more interior environment. I mean, we had one of the worst drought seasons here ever last year. We're seeing weird climate anomalies, and I mean, I know it's localized, but I'm pretty sure the jet stream is kind of screwed up the world over. Like, yesterday it was -31, and today it was raining. And if you don't know, it has to be 0 for rain to happen. So, 0 Celsius. I know you guys use that more primitive British imperial thing. But,
whatever, you communists, we're not on that communist system.
It's funny that's the only thing that you guys kept from the British, was their really crappy imperial system.
We landed on the moon, so take that.
That's true. We did. But we built this cool like space arm thing for you guys that nobody knows about. So anyway.
Prove it. Fake news.
Conspiracy theory.
Is that peer reviewed? Anyone know?
Should we talk about the situation across the pond there a bit? Because I'm sure that's on everybody's minds. In fact, they probably will think that we aired this before any of that was going down. So yes, we're aware that Russia is about to invade the Ukraine or whatever. So what do you guys think about that? Or maybe not. Maybe it's all a ruse. Who knows? What do you guys think?
I think it's just going to be a Crimea version, 2.0. I mean, I hate to be this guy, but I had a long talk with someone just recently. I can't give a lot of details, but anyway, short version is they work for a pretty large hedge fund, and they oversee quite a lot of assets.
Okay.
And they hire a lot of smart people because they have to understand what's going to happen next to determine how they're going to invest. And their internal team is basically of the view that it's going to be very similar to Crimea. It's going to be annexation. It's going to be very minor, kind of just inching forward versus some all-out conflict. And we're going to release a video. I know by the time this video comes out, my video will have already been in the past, but that's the assessment, is that, you can clearly see the pieces are being put in place behind the scenes. It's not, I don't know. I personally think what you're seeing amassing on the border is just a front. What's really being done is behind the scenes. And they'll probably put in a puppet, just some kind of a figurehead that they're going to run the country. And I can't imagine there being much bloodshed in the process. But that's my take. I could be completely wrong. I can't,
how do you think?
I just don't think it's going to be a full on war or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily to that degree either, but I'm interested if you broach the subject of how natural gas and everything will be handled. So what will the economic fallout aspects be if the U.S. decides to do anything?
I mean, they anticipate that it is going to take a hit on the market as a result. I mean, that's all they're interested in, is to see how it's going to play out for their investments. Yeah. So there will be a dip during that period. I mean, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty as a result, but long term, I mean, how many of us really remember anything about Crimea? I don't. I mean, I think I remember it on the news, but
very little. Yeah,
very little. And it's just going to be just kind of taking inch by inch. I mean, I think Putin's playing the long game, and this will be something they'll be working on for years to do. So I don't know. It's just me. I mean, yeah, there's going to be an impact, but I don't think it's going to be a world-changing event, and that's my 2 cents. So
my take on it is that I just keep seeing throughout any research this pattern of human behavior over and over again, and that's that you get a biological threat, you get an economic event, and then you have war. And I don't know necessarily. I honestly don't think that it's going to be the Russian Ukraine issue that sparks that larger international war. But I do think the potential is there, and maybe the seeds will even be sown over what happens next between NATO and Russia. And so I'm always on the lookout for when that next larger military conflict could take place, because those boys built their toys and they want to use them.
Yeah, I know for me that it's something that I'm keeping an eye on, but I find that I struggle personally with getting a lot of anxiety and having trouble sleeping when I dive into it, much more than the surface level. So while I keep an eye on it, it's the same thing that, like, when I teach my kids. I mean, if they can't control it, I mean, what are they? You can't worry about stuff that you can't really control. You can only really worry about the stuff that you can. And so for me, it doesn't really alter the way that I'm preparing for emergencies and stuff. But yeah, I do think. I agree with what Chris said. Is it's probably not going to be some hardcore thing, but who knows? But I know that it's definitely scary, and it's definitely it provides me with a sense of urgency towards certain gaps in my personal preparedness measures that it encourages me with that. But I find myself, I can't dive into it in a great level of detail without having trouble sleeping at night. So
yeah, right. Well, and I think that you kind of, you talked earlier about how
you got a cameo.
I guess.
Yeah, we have a special appearance here today. But Cliff talked earlier about how they're, how his children are handling the entire world around them and everything. And then he just brought up an important topic that if you can't control it, then, you can give it a certain amount of your personal attention, and then you don't have to go too far beyond that. And I was going to say earlier about my children, because my children are, a little bit different in the fact that we, how we school and raise and everything. And so they're very aware of the environment of, the social political nature, especially my older one in his mid-teens. But he doesn't really have too much anxiety or concern about it, because, he's got this idea that, this is kind of how I've always told them, if you see me worried, then you get worried about something. If you don't see me worried about it, then, we just keep on going. You be a good person. You get your, it's always a good idea to have your pantry stocked up, to have extra money for something, be invested into things, and you just move on from there. And I think that with what's happening, and Nate, I want to get your take on, Ukraine and what you think is going to happen there. But I think for me, it's that it's going to fit into a puzzle of a larger, it's going to be a piece into a larger puzzle here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, from what I mean, I've been getting information from a variety of sources, so I don't remember where I got this from. But one analyst suspected that the manpower that they have at the border right now is not enough for a full-scale incursion.
Yeah.
However, that really depends on how much of a resistance that they would actually put up. So I don't know if you know, but there was a guy named Adolf who just walked into some countries, many years ago, because they didn't really put up much of a resistance. So,
yeah,
would there be like this initial resistance that will be quickly suppressed, and then they just waltz right in there and, without many shots fired? That's a possibility. By the sounds of things, it doesn't seem like it would go down that way. But according to this source, they don't think that they have the manpower. However, that's not factoring in conventional,
warfare
rocket
techniques,
science, right? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be mostly waged, like Russia's, their strength is in their missile defense and offense. So they're being supplied with all these small arms, which to me is just like, I made the comparison on my YouTube channel today. It would be like the stuff that they're giving the Ukraine to fight Russia would be the equivalent of, the British giving us rocket launchers to fight you guys off. Like, they know what the result is going to be. So clearly there's been I shouldn't say clearly, but there's obviously been some concession with NATO that they know that they're not going to help Ukraine to a certain degree. That's what it appears. It appears that sanctions are the only thing. I mean, we're talking about, they couldn't take Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, come on, Russia, let's get real here. So, but why I think this is so significant and why I'm watching it closely is because if you think about what Ukraine signifies, it signifies more than just what it is. Obviously, as a country, 40 million people, it's not the greatest economy, okay? It's not like a huge catch, but it signifies a shift in the balance of power. And I do think that if, NATO is not going to like it if Russia takes it, and Russia certainly is not going to like it if, NATO
keeps a foothold. Yeah.
So it really is like a nexus. It's what's the word? It's, it really matters. I think it's a big country and it matters. And whoever is victorious there could potentially, because once you get that, then the momentum continues in that direction, whether it's moving eastward or moving westward. So I do think it matters. And while I think that, it might just be another Crimea thing, I can't even pronounce it.
Yeah, or Syria even. Syria is a recent example of the proxy war setting. So
yeah, so what we see though is we see America losing its foothold around the world. Mm-hmm. And we'll be in a different world if Russia annexes Ukraine and China annexes Taiwan. It will be a different world. And we'll be moving into more defensive posture as opposed to an offensive one. And perhaps that's signifying the end of the Pax Americana, or at least the beginning of the end of it, because we're also seeing the American dollar, which is, Peter Schiff has been saying it's going to collapse for years, but it's going to collapse one of these years.
One day he's going to be right.
One day he's going to be right. And, when that happens, that's when we're no longer the only superpower in the world. And I say we because we're basically like
connected
to guys.
Like you're America's hat, basically.
Yeah. California has an economy that's twice the size of ours. So,
but that's what I think.
I think it's important. And I think, so let's, I would say, I don't think it's going to lead to all out nuclear war.
Yeah.
But,
don't discount it.
If NATO people get killed and they, lob something back and, it could escalate.
Yeah, right. You had said something earlier, and I think that this probably has the potential to make a lot of people mad in the comments. You had talked about that one guy, Adolf, that just went in there and did some work. In my personal opinion, I try to stay very politically neutral. I don't like either of the old men that they wanted to put into office. I think that some guy on a walker should not be the one that we're all saying, yes, let's be like him.
Wasn't wasn't the one guy, he couldn't walk? What was his name? Eisenhower?
FDR, right?
FDR.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
okay. So
not to be ableist here.
Yeah. but I definitely believe that over what I've seen since the political turmoil in the last 48 months, I really think we're getting close to where I see the types of people who would literally stand up and follow Adolf. And I think that we have them on both sides of the political spectrum in the US. And there's, yes, people who absolutely would push for a communist China approach to weld you into your house because you won't take your medicine. And then you have the complete opposite side where, they would push for a completely different corrupt agenda. And my personal take on Florida, because I'm from Florida. I know that a lot of corruption takes place there. I could go into private detail with you guys about some court corruption that I have firsthand in dealing with. But I know that corruption exists heavily there. And so when you have people all the time who are saying things like, oh, our governor does this, our governor does that. And then I look into who has put that governor into office, and it's he's just got massive amounts of money in Regeneron and these other antibody treatments. So of course he has a personal economic motivation to, yes, let's leave everything all open, because that's the more, you'll sell more medicine at the end of the day. But I really see that happening where the fever is like taking over people. It used to be every 4 years that people would get into that, football fever of my team, my Republicans, my Democrats. And now it's like they're holding on to that. They just want that so bad. Are you guys seeing kind of the same thing?
What, as far as people just taking extreme positions? And
yeah, and just that fervent, this is them for the rest of their life. No one's ever going to sway their opinion.
Oh, that's the point of the video that I was very hesitant to release it yesterday on Civil War 2.0 in America. And it's not a subject that I enjoy talking about on the channel, but it's something, if you watch any media outlet right now, it's a lot of people are coming on speaking about this, different academia and stuff. That's it's fascinating. And, they're showing historical examples and what's happening in America right now. And it's a few years ago, I would have laughed it off, but they're showing pretty strong evidence of what's happening. And that's the problem, is that, to your point, to your question, my concern is that people have lost the ability to communicate, that everybody sees each other as a threat. And I'll be honest, I politically, I find myself, in this kind of trying to hang out in the Overton window a lot of times, trying to find that middle ground. I view myself as an American. I don't really enjoy taking sides, but it's come to the position that if you don't take a side, then you're the enemy, you're a coward, you're this, you're that. And there is no middle ground. There is no, it has to be black and white. And, I got neighbors that are all kind of political stripes, and it's cool just hanging out, talking, and, but anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that it has become so defining. The politics has been pushed so heavily into our discourse that it is now kind of like what you were talking about, Cliff, at fourth grade level. I can't even imagine. It is, it's that identity. People are forming their identities around it. And it's like a team sport. And to your point, Brad, who's winning? It's not the American population, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, right.
And most Americans have, I'll be honest, I'll finish with saying this. Most Americans have zero idea of what news is anymore. We don't really have news in America. It is, the Fox News, the OAN, it is the NBC, the CNN, it is commentary, and that's all it is. Go look at Reuters. Reuters sells information to these outlets, and those outlets spin it. If you ever go and look at Reuters, it's like eating a freaking piece of cardboard. It is so dry. It is just like, here's the information, do with it what you will. But it's like, well, where's the commentary? Why am I being, no one's telling me that that's the bad guy, and it's like, well, it's just news, right? And that's my concern, is that people have become, I
don't want to say extreme, but I think they've become extreme in their belief,
I love the analogy that you said, Brad, about the home teams, because that's totally what it is. I mean, it's ride or die with your home team. You whatever it takes to win. You don't care if you get some bad player, as long as he's a good player and helps you win, then that's all you really care about. And at the end of the day, you're having these arguments. Most people they don't want to have dialogues. They want to have monologues where they go on their soapbox and stuff. And when they're listening, there's someone they're not listening to understand where they're coming from. They're listening to figure out what their rebuttal is. And it's just like, I don't know, how do you operate like that? And then at the end of the day, all these people that I see on TV are just like NASCAR drivers with their sponsor patches all over them, and it's all freaking fake and funny. So it's just like, why are we fighting with each other over this kind of stuff in this way? It's bad enough that we're doing it, but now when you see 8-year-olds doing it, it's like
it's sad. It just becomes sad,
super sad. And I miss the days when I was growing up. I didn't know any of the political views of my teachers or my friends or anything. It wasn't that important. You voted. Everyone kind of kept it private to what it is. But with what Chris is saying, I find that more and more people want to know where you stand, so they could figure out,
judge you.
Is this person on my home team? Are they on the Seahawks, or are they the 49ers, or whatever it is? So it's just all stupid. So.
Yeah,
that's the number one comment that just upsets me, is that, because I don't, in my videos, I try to stay neutral and I try to just let people decide on their own. I had someone the other day like, hey, could you go through and explain all your positions on these things? I was like, that's the point of this video, is that I don't want to do that. You are
my mother's maiden name.
Americans are so trained.
Why do you care so much?
Yeah.
Why do you care what I think about, abortion or whatever? Like, who cares?
And I'm like, just
not who cares, but who cares what I think?
Yeah. I'm like, you're an intelligent adult. Yeah. I don't need to feed you that. And what I hate is, in the comment sections, I've been seeing this more and more. People are like, well, I'll see you on the battleground then, and I know which side you're on. I'm like, what battleground? Battleground in the apocalypse. That's the comment that I've been seeing more and more of lately. And I'm like, you're not my enemy. Just because I don't agree 100% with everything you do, we probably agree with a lot, but it's this thing of, you got to be 100% on the same page with me. And I'm like, when did we get that way?
A lot of it is due to text-based communication. Because usually when you have those dialogues with people on the street in a calm, relaxed setting, you can joke a little bit. I think a lot of it has to do with this bottleneck of the nonverbals. We don't have nonverbal communication anymore.
How do I emote and reply to this?
Yeah. But to tie it all back into Russia, because this all is a part of the same thing. The civil discourse that we're having in our societies is all related to governments trying to destabilize other governments. We know that, the troll farms existed. We probably are doing the same thing. We know that there's ideological subversion happening where, we're trying to overthrow certain people we don't like. They're trying to sow seeds of unrest. So a lot of this extremism is a result of the global stage. So it's just to keep that in mind, that the extremism, the fanaticism that we're seeing, it's not just algorithms, it's actual, it's a war, essentially.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's one thing. I'm not an Alex Jones fan. I think that he has woken a lot of people up to certain degrees, but I do believe his kind of like his monologue there, that there is a war on for your mind. And I think that really hits home for the world right now, that there literally is. Fox wants this part of you. CNN wants this part of you. The government wants this part of you, and there's a, I guess it's more a war for your allegiance. And if you're
money too.
Yeah. If you're good and you pledge your allegiance to the economy, then we'll be all right.
I wonder, how many of the comments sometimes in my videos, like you're talking about Nate or troll farms. I one time had a video and I made a comment about something, and I had two comments, or I had one comment instantly pop up in response to what I posted. And I was like, I don't want this on my channel. I deleted it. And a second later, I hit refresh. Someone was like, hey, why did you delete that comment? And I could tell, like, okay, that's totally, that's probably somebody, that's sitting there monitoring comments. Yeah, and I caught it and I ended up blocking him. But I was like, I wonder how many people go down the comments section to stir the pot, right? And I'm sure that we're being played a lot of times, these comments. I have no idea who's posting it.
I talked to Kelly about that recently, because I'll have the exact same ideals in a certain type of comment, and they'll be on very stark political lines. And I'm like, is it really possible that all of those people saying that exact same thing, none of them can spell your with an apostrophe and an R and an E? And I'm like, is this even possible? It like broke me on my mind. I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
That's a tell right there. Is if there's not an apostrophe, we know it's a troll farm.
So I'm like, there's got to be something, happening. And then on the other side, it was all saying the exact same thing on the opposite side. It's just, it's maddening.
Wow.
A lot of people just like stirring the pot too, where they like the Joker from the Dark Knight, where they just want to see the world burn and they say, oh, let's say this and see what happens. But it's kind of crazy some of how like quick some of those comments could come in like a coordinated attack. So
yeah, I could totally tell.
Wow. Yeah. Well, guys, I think that wrapped up the time that we had and everything that we kind of wanted to put out there. What I'm looking for from our community here and everybody that watches, especially if you made it to the end, because bravo, we would make it to the end of watching ourselves. If you would let us know what type of engagement you like to see. What is important to you? Because what's important to you in our communities individually and collectively is literally important to us, because a lot of times you'll see something that matters that maybe we're only putting over here. We're not giving it our attention. So whether that's, changes in the economy, what you're seeing in your state, different things that are happening internationally, we really want to know. So please leave a comment. And I've been asking people on my channel, and if you're avid watchers of Nate or Cliff or Chris, go through the comments. And if you leave a comment, just do us that favor and go and reply to just one other person's comment. Because a lot of times, even though we might be very divided purposefully, I think that just knowing that somebody else is out there, and it doesn't have to be an echo chamber like, yes, you're right, or anything like that. Just, hey, I'm seeing that, or I haven't seen that locally. Just, civil communication there, I think, is really important. And that's something that we're missing. So please leave that one comment, leave that one reply to somebody else's, maybe a total stranger or somebody that you've seen on the channel before. Let them know that you're in this together with them. Guys, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, with regard to comments, I always like it when people like, I feel that so often, like when you're arguing with people, especially in the comments section, that you're just trying to go with your point, but call people by their names. Oftentimes people have their names as their with their avatar or whatever like that. I try to always, when I'm replying to comments, hey, Chris, or hey, Natalie, or hey, thanks for commenting, Justin. And we need to start treating people as people again. I think that we're not just usernames. We're actual people that have names that our parents gave us. So I highly recommend, like, when you're leaving the comments on calling people by their name, sometimes that just will bring humanizes us and brings any kind of hostility down, that when you're getting in a disagreement, as long as you still realize that you're people, that's a good thing. And then I was just going to say, like, we've been talking about all sorts of topics, and I was talking about Ukraine and Russia and Omicron, and I was talking about the fears that I have, and then when my daughter makes a cameo, she comes in and says, "I'm going to bed, Dad, I love you," and that's all she said. And it just like, and that helps me stay focused. So it's at the end of the day, do everything that you're doing to help stay grounded and take care of the people that are important to you, like what you saw there. So.
Yeah, perfect.
The eternal optimist.
Sorry,
my wife.
I have to operate from that. So.
My wife is literally
before we go.
My wife is literally the queen of silver. Like, she'll put a silver lining on anything. And she said she thinks it's a coping mechanism because growing up, there was a lot of negativity in the house. So to get over that, she would silver lining the whole world. And even like today, I was complaining about we were making today's video, and there's just noisy cars all over the place. It was just madness. I couldn't talk. And what did you say? She said something like that. At least there's a lot of traffic around here.
At least we're not alone.
Yeah, right. So it's just, but that's important, like you said, to see the good side of things. And so we created kind of our opposites that bring us together there. Go ahead and depress us, Nate. We want to hear it.
Oh man, like, I mean, I always tell people, like, I like talking about this stuff because I find it fascinating. People say, why don't you smile more? It's not because I'm not happy or I'm not, I'm interested. I'm curious. It's the nature of who I am, and it's okay to be curious. And it's not like we live in fear. I know I'm going to die. Everybody's going to die, but
We're all gonna
It's-
die.
We are. We are all gonna die. That'll be tomorrow's video title. How about that?
Yeah.
We're all gonna die. Yeah, we don't have too long. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, man, like it's not to minimize what we talk about, because yeah, there's an obvious fear that underlies what we do. But to me, that's a healthy fear. But that doesn't mean you live in fear. It doesn't mean that you can't enjoy life. It doesn't mean that we can't joke about the end of the world. And, you know, I joke about it all the time because, I mean, what else are you going to do? Like, are you just going to be that guy who's, you know, are you going to be the guys playing the violins on the Titanic while it sinks? Or are you going to be the guy losing his mind? You know, so I want to be the guy playing the violins for people, basically.
Yeah.
So,
which is evident in the t-shirt. Let me see the t-shirt.
The end is near.
I like that.
And it is what it is. So we're gonna have to learn how to use bidets or snow or whatever.
Yep. I like it.
It is what it is. Just a ride, guys. Just
I think
a
a lot of people do amazing things with when they have an underlying fear with them. Like I'm always impressed with like the free solo climbers that are doing that, and they're not smiling as they're climbing up the mountain with no ropes and stuff. They're they're afraid for their lives, but they also feel alive by doing that. And so I could totally see where you're coming from, Nate, as far as like, this is fascinating for me. This is where my juices go. And yeah, I don't need to smile during it. And yeah, it is scary, but it's also where, yeah, it makes me alive. So
yeah, I appreciate it, guys. I'm thankful for each one of you, for you guys being here with us, each one of our channels, and thankful for you guys for watching. So if there's anything you want to see or want to talk about, please let us know. From all of our families to yours, please stay safe.
Take care.
See ya.
See you guys.